You've got Talk Erie on your radio, 105.9 WZTE, and also 103.3 and AM 1530. We are having the crucial conversations that Erie needs, including Erie learning a lot through the efforts of the Jefferson Educational Society, and our good friend Ben Speggen is with us, Vice President of the JES. Sir, how are you?
Joel, I am terrific, and it's especially terrific because I'm sitting here with you. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to be back here and great to be in the studio and catch up with you. I feel like so much has happened and so much is about to happen, so a great way to dive into some programs and talk about anything on your mind, but really appreciate you.
I know you were on like a month or so ago, and we kind of talked a little bit about Global Summit. But we do have a dangling participle from Global Summit because we're about to, in a couple months, honor the Hagen Dignitas Award winner.
We are, and we're so excited that we were able to announce a date for this. Due to unforeseen circumstances, we just could not go through with the program we had anticipated in the fall. Since 2011, we've honored someone from Erie or who has spent significant time in the community with the Thomas B. Hagen Dignitas Award, and it honors them because of their contributions in outstanding achievements in their field, but also their contributions in outstanding achievements to the civic vitality at the local level and impact at the national level. That all started back in 2011 with Erie's own Steve Scully, host of The Briefing on SiriusXM radio and the chairman of the Global Summit with the JES. This year, we're so excited. Last year, we were so excited to honor Fred Bolitnikoff. And now this year, we're so excited to honor Fred Bolitnikoff because that's coming up on May 21st, day after primary elections. Primary elections are on Tuesday, May 20th. We're going to do the event with Fred on Wednesday, May 21st. And it's an ability to look back at not only a Hall of Fame athlete, both at the professional and collegiate level, and still awards for wide receivers are named after him because of how good but also to look at the work that the Bolitnikoff Foundation does, for at-risk youth, for those suffering a variety of issues, and the impact that he's had, and really the legacy that he leads, and just what an example he is. So we're really excited that we can announce that. That's our dangling participle. We have future tense because we did announce really early, historically early. We've never had an announcement in January, but we have.
We're arguing over grammar.
See, that's why I come here, Joel, because it's fun and we can get into the minutia of this. Like this is the high point of my day, right? Like it's
exactly.
I'm just going home after this. It's done. No, I'm kidding. I have plenty left to do today, but we have we're so excited. We couldn't keep the news to ourselves, and we have famed astrophysicist Neil deGrasse Tyson coming in for the Global Summit. So we announced our headliner months early. Like I said,
and tickets are on sale already, right?
Tickets are on sale already. We've already sold hundreds of them. It's crazy.
Have you really?
Yeah, it is. They are moving quickly.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't think I don't mean to send all of your listeners to a panic and find a computer and register for the tickets now, but they are moving at a healthy clip. We were really hardened by that. That folks are excited about Neil deGrasse Tyson coming to Erie. We're gonna have that event at the Bayfront Convention Center, so we've got a lot of room down there to work with, which is great because we do anticipate a large audience. We had two events at the Bayfront Convention Center for Global Summit 2024. We had both former U.S. Representative Liz Cheney in conversation with famous and renowned theologian and philosopher Sister Joan Chittister of Erie vintage as well. One of those Hagen Dignitas Award winners from years back. But we also had best-selling authors Heather Cox Richardson and Tom Nichols. So it's a great space down there at the convention center. So we'll have Neil deGrasse Tyson at the convention center Wednesday, October 29th. He's terrific, right? I mean, it's just I'm a bit of a fanboy, if I can admit that on the air. Like I like what he does, and I think I admire what he does because I'm no scientist. I'm gonna argue grammar with you because I was an English major, but I have an affinity for science. But that sometimes it's tough for me to understand that. I'll admit that that's not an aptitude I naturally have, but he makes it so darn accessible.
Well, what's so crazy about that area of our culture right now is the amount of data that they're collecting from these super telescopes and all the other things, and now they're probably putting AI into analyzing things. The discovery cycle is so fast right now.
Right, and that's where, we're looking at how we had made leaps and bounds when it comes to science and space. The leaps and bounds that had taken us decades, if not a century, to get to. And then a bit of a cooling and not much, but now an uptick in that again, in that spirit of exploring a still largely uncharted frontier, what is out there. And for us, we know that that's something our audience is fascinated with and wants to explore. We've had Dr. Avi Loeb present multiple times, an astronomer working up at Harvard University, but also been able to call from local expertise. I'm thinking of Darren Williams, Penn State Barron.
Okay.
We had him actually do a preemptive lecture before the eclipse last year. So, hot on the minds last year of looking up. I think that's something just intuitive that humans want to do, is look up and imagine what is up there. And so you're absolutely right. Now with new technology, we're just moving at the speed of light. It's just happening so much more quickly, and I think it's going to be incredibly fascinating to watch in the coming months and the coming years as we advance that, where we head as a species. Can we get a person to Mars? Will we get a person to Mars in our lifetime, Joel?
And will they plant a U.S. flag on Mars?
Right, or will it be a flag of a different country? Think about the space race, though. I think that's one of the things that was galvanizing for Americans, that you can disagree on a lot of things, but the idea of American innovation, American accomplishment, and American pride, and the idea that, we can do this. Let's put our best and brightest to the task, and let's get to the moon and plant a flag. And so...
Right. Some of that was fear-based.
Oh,
I mean,
absolutely.
To be honest,
Oh,
I
my
mean,
gosh, yeah.
when because the Russians were cleaning our clocks for a while, they're Soviets.
Yeah.
They put Sputnik up there and they're like, are they going to be able to drop a bomb? Well, fast forward to the 2020s. Yeah, it's not the bomb that you're thinking of, but they have space lasers and stuff like that.
Right, and I mean, and that's and hopefully fear is not what is going to guide us to explore the space frontier, but no doubt it played that role in the build up through the 50s into the 60s, and thinking about that through the lens of the Cold War and driving us. I really hope that, the spirit of accomplishment is what's driving us, not the idea that, adversarially we have to, be up against another country. But it's an exciting time to be a human, I think.
Okay, one more question, and totally rabbit trail. You spent some time in Germany. Does Germany have any kind of space program going that you're aware of?
That's an excellent question, and I know when to admit that I'm out of my lane, and I'm out of my lane here. I honestly don't know.
You think about Werner von Braun.
Yeah.
We stole him from the Nazis. He basically designed the Saturn V rocket and all the other ones.
Right.
I just, it just occurs to me like, geez, I wonder if they're... Well, there is a European space agency. I would imagine that they participate in that.
I would imagine too, and what I will try to do on a commercial break when we get to it is I will come back with a better answer, because I don't want to leave your readers hanging. Like I want to figure
Google
this out.
European space,
or they'll Google it before us and come back. But yeah, truthfully, I've been so preoccupied with our own space ventures that I don't have an answer to that.
Yeah, a mutual friend, Sean Fedorko, is like, I think he's my space guy here in town.
He's a great space guy.
And knows all the things. But we've got to talk about the winter term. So before we go to break here, let's talk about tonight, because you're kicking off the winter term with a special event and also chatting about the wine industry.
We are, and one of the things that we'd brought back, recently was, to have these term kickoffs and invite people into our space and build in an hour for a reception. So you can show up at 6:00. You can also show up at 6:59 and just see the show. But the idea was to bring people back, and we take that break following the Global Summit, right? So we've not really we had one event at the JES in December, but we haven't seen our folks in a while, for an event. So we're kicking off We have a reception featuring a wine tasting. Mazda Vineyards is going to be in there doing a wine tasting. We have it catered as well. Not a full dinner, a light little reception. But initially, we had plans to have Dr. Rod Phillips come in and present. He's a professor, and he's a wine writer, historian, and judge. He is based in Canada, and he is Canadian. I'm sure your listeners are well aware, as we are, Joel, that, over the weekend on Saturday, the Trump administration had made announcements that there would be impending tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China. Those would take effect on Tuesday. A lot of back and forth happened in the following hours, including getting a note from Rod saying that, in good conscience, knowing that the tariff war was going to begin, because, of course, Canada, as one might anticipate, retaliated. That they were going to impose tariffs as well, just as Mexico did, and as China is currently doing, as we do now know that both China and Mexico, the tariffs have been backed off for 30 days. So I think we have about 28 days left, on negotiations there to see where we're headed. Some things are already on the table. So in good conscience, he couldn't set foot in the United States, and I respect the principle of that. Of what do you do, how do you handle that, and so we are fortunate to not be on an island for this event. We truly believe in the power of partnerships, and we partner with a number of organizations throughout the region to host programs, to do publications, and more. This program is in partnership with the Hagen History Center for its Doris Becker lecture series.
Okay.
And so grateful not just to the nimble moving from planning to pivoting with the JES team, but the full attention and efforts of the Hagen History Center team. So a huge shout out to Cal Pfeiffer and Pam Parker and all of their work to help, because within a matter of 12 hours, 18 hours, we had a new speaker on the hook. We had that person lined up. It's a name who is synonymous with wine in the northwestern Pennsylvania region, Bob Green. So Bob is involved both in industry, a number of wineries here, but also education. Taught at Mercyhurst Northeast for quite some time. Currently teaches at Penn State Barron. So somebody well-versed. So we'll get a chance to look at many of the same things we were looking at in the program with Rod. So we are going to look at wine's history, its trail from the Black Seas region through Europe over to North America, a timeline for wine along northwestern Pennsylvania lakeshore, how we become a critical part of that industry, and why it matters. So sticking with the topic, being able to present somebody. So not only thanks to Hagen History Center and Cal and Pam, but for Mr. Green stepping in, on short notice.
I wonder if there's going to be any conversation about public policy, because growing up here, we had a kind of a stunted wine industry, and New York was flourishing because they just had basic different law.
Yeah.
And then somebody in Harrisburg got their act together, and now we have this beautifully flourishing wine industry on this side of the state line, and that's really cool.
We do, and I think that's where we see things playing out at a state level in the power of state legislature and what they control. I mean, today's conversation, transition that to cannabis, right? Just yesterday, Governor Shapiro was announcing, here is a way to legalize cannabis use and tax it and make money off of it. To address those who have been incarcerated to get a pathway forward to a brighter future, but also to lift up other service programs. So there's money to be had. And in the case that the governor was making yesterday is you don't need to look far. Look to our neighbors to the north and our neighbors to the west, and both Ohio and New York are doing this. And Pennsylvania residents are headed to those two states to take their Pennsylvania dollars and spend them in Ohio and New York. And of course, we want to welcome people to do that opportunity. But if there's cash on the table that the state could benefit from for taxes to reinvest in Pennsylvanians, let's do that. So hopefully what we saw in the wine industry with re-examining the regulations, re-examining a way that we approach it, and making it more favorable is an agriculture of the future that's now presently blooming. We have the opportunity to do that in the future as well.
I want to dig into the whole idea of driving under the influence. That's the thing that concerns me about recreational weed. Ben Speggen is our guest here. Got to take a 2-minute break. It's Talk Erie and the Joel Natale Show. Talk Erie on the Joel Natale Show. Moving along on a Wednesday. It's an important conversation with Ben Speggen with the Jefferson Educational Society. We're talking about the winter term here. And again, if you want to, follow along, you can find out this information at jeserie.org. So opening night tonight, another opening, another show, and then it's full on in. So you got something tomorrow night. Talk about that.
Right, it's the full court press, but I don't want to leave your listeners with bated breath. So as promised, I googled. So you're gonna have to trust a very light look into this, but Google tells me that Germany's space program is a civil military effort that includes German Aerospace Center (DLR), the National Program for Space and Innovation (NPWI), and the European Space Agency, which, Joel, I think that's what you were referring to.
Yeah, I figured that they were
organization.
A participant, right?
So they are. And I have my homework for when I come back for the next show, so I'm going to talk German and German.
So I'm thinking they throw like a label on one of the rockets that says "Actum Baby." It's just a real YouTube vibe going on.
Yes, caution or attention, baby. What
was the big '80s German band? Def Leppard, right? Wasn't Def Leppard from Germany?
You were.
I'm taxing you today.
Yeah, I was going to say I did not come prepared to talk about Germany's space program.
You spent a summer there, and I'm thinking that you're fully immersed.
Here's what you're helping make the case, Joel, is I get to go back and say, look, I apparently didn't learn enough the first time. I need to go back because this Natale guy is like grilling me on the radio, and I need another cultural immersion. So let me get to work on that. I'll go back this summer.
Instead of dealing with like industry and stuff, you're just gonna go full on in on pop culture.
Go full in on pop culture, but you are right to steer us back to programming, yes. Joel. It's the full court press. We have 36 events over 2 months, and those are happening at 6 different locations. So one, we have our campus up on 32nd and State Streets in the city of Erie, but we have 4 satellite locations throughout the county, including one in the inner city. But we have a location in Corey, we have one in Fairview, and we have one in Harbor Creek. And we're also partnering with Gannon University to do a program this term as well. And that one is at one of the local churches. It's a look at it's Michelle Kahn is the performer. She's amazing. Okay. And the Erie Philharmonic's going to be there, but it's a look at the music of Florence Price, and I think it's going to be a really powerful event. Gannon students are going to do some presenting. I skipped ahead to that one. That's Wednesday, February 19th. But you were talking about tomorrow. Tomorrow, it's a big day for us, and I'm really quite proud of 28 individuals in particular, but of course all of those that help support them and help in the learning process. Our Civic Leadership Academy graduates tomorrow. So the graduation ceremony will take place 6 to 8 p.m. An important component about that program, aside from, I think, instilling a confidence in us that bright days lie ahead, and for anyone who might argue, but the youth, and then fill in they're not engaged, they're not involved, they're not plugged in, they don't know anything. Here are 28 individuals that went through this process to learn how to become more active participants and informed participants in their own democracy, and to better understand the form and function of municipal government. But at the same time that we help them learn county government, because if the Quakers blessed us with anything in Pennsylvania, it's municipal government. We are incredibly balkanized here. I mean, we have 2/3 the population, if not less, than California this time, but 5 times the amount of government that California has. Wow. Simply because it was the belief that the closer to the people government would be, the more in control they would be of it. Now, I'm not here to argue whether or not that was a good thing. It's just what we have. And so, we have 38 municipalities in our county alone. And so there's a lot to understand the inner workings of strong mayor government, weak mayor government, commissioner form of government. But not only learning the importance of local level government, and then also its relationship to the state government, because we kick everything off with a retreat to Harrisburg, where they meet with their representatives, and they learn that their representatives and their senators have the longest trip to Harrisburg to make out of anybody, right? Because it is just, we're the geographical outlier. We are the farthest trek for anybody that represents anybody in Pennsylvania. So you gain an appreciation of that at the very least, but you get to meet with leaders and folks who are working on helping to shape and inform critical issues, that are playing out at the state level and at the local level. And each year, the alumni network gets together and votes on what is a critical issue facing the region that needs more attention, needs a light to be shined on it. This year's topic was mental health, and so an important part of the graduation is elected by their peers. 3 representatives will present the preliminary. I don't even call it preliminary because their report's done. It's an overview, of their report, and we'll debut the report tomorrow. But not only the report, and I hope I'm not spoiling any surprises they might have planned. They created a website and a toolkit.
Oh wow!
And they've chosen to, and we task them with choosing how, with deciding how do you want to approach this really broad topic. And so we saddled them with mental health and said, this is clearly a crisis we're experiencing, but it's a layered crisis. It's a wicked problem because a lot's going on. They chose to focus on adolescents, particularly between the ages of 14 and 18, because that's where you stand to lose the break.
What a huge lift, even that
right?
4 years.
Right.
An incredibly esoteric and, problem that we're dealing with. I mean, I got to hand it to these young leaders for putting this.
I am impressed, Joel. I mean, it's we wouldn't publish it if we didn't think it was think tank level research. Wow. And we say that about every cohort. And I always wonder, what happens if they don't deliver it? And every year they do. So tomorrow night, come see them. They'll do a deeper dive presentation in the spring term. But tomorrow night, we celebrate our graduates and learn from them.
6 o'clock at the JES. News is next, and then more with Ben Speggen on Talk Erie. You've got Talk Erie on your radio, 105.9 WZTE. It's our Kingdom Financial Group studio. And we are live with Ben Speggen. He is the vice president of the Jefferson Educational Society, kicking off their fall term tonight with distinguished visiting speakers, satellite programming, digital programs here. And Ben, I'm not sure we're going to get to all of this here in the second half hour, but because I think we've mentioned three actual events, and there's 30 something. But let's keep moving here. And maybe I'll cherry pick some things and ask you about them. I want to talk about in general your noon programming, because I think this is fascinating. I love this stuff here.
I really love it too, and not to delay us further, Joel, but were you thinking of the Scorpions?
Yes.
Yeah, so this is what we do on commercial breaks, is we
80s
fact check.
German bands.
Yeah, we fact check, we look things up, and we try to come with answers. So this is great. I love the
Isn't that Rock Me Like a Hurricane? Wasn't that the Scorpions?
Here
I am.
I think you're right, but I closed my phone already. Next commercial break, we're coming back to answer what the top 5 songs of the Scorpions were over time, so that Joel and everyone knows, including me. But no, Joel, the community conversations, I really appreciate the work that this does. This was put into place by one of my former colleagues, Angela Beaumont, because we always wanted a way to branch out from our traditional evening-based programming. Most of our programs are happening at 6 or 7 in the evening. But what would a lunchtime program look like? And we experimented before on other things, but this has really stuck the landing. And the concept is to get civic stakeholders and community leaders to give an update, a presentation on the critical work that they're doing, so that way the public has access to this and they understand what's happening. And so the very first one, we're going to have Brandon Wiley, the CEO of Opened Eyes, come and present on having culturally conscious conversations to foster professional and personal wellness. You know, what it is to have and navigate, what a culturally conscious conversation is, and that stemmed from receiving questions like what are you in your background and how you present and things like that. So a really interesting conversation there to be able to have. Skipping ahead to February the 21st, we have the Mental Health Association. We were just talking about the topic of mental health with the Civic Leadership Academy. They met with Pat Stuck, the director, during their 8-month-long curriculum. And we were so moved by the work there that they said, more people need to know about this. And we thought, well, we have a platform, so let's open that platform. So Pat and her colleagues will be talking about the importance of the Mental Health Association, the role that they play in downtown Erie. Also, too, an opportunity to celebrate milestones by looking back at accomplishments of the past, but also looking forward to see what that vision looks like. And a chance of that is the Erie Community Foundation. The Erie Community Foundation turns 90 this year.
That's remarkable.
Right. And it really, truly is, an important asset in our region, the work that they do. Thinking about how the Erie community just really wraps its arms around Erie Gives Day every August when that comes out. And so Karen Billowith, the president and CEO of the Community Foundation, is going to be able to talk about the timeline, how things have changed over the years in terms of the Community Foundation. Its origin point, what it looks like to begin with is, one endowment, and how it's now blossomed over the years, to be able to focus on that. So much more.
I want to know if my listeners remember who started the Erie Community Foundation.
So let's see if your listeners remember. So are you asking your listeners, or are you asking
Well,
me?
it's more of a rhetorical question, but I'll ask you.
I was going to see if anybody would actually chime in and try to answer that.
Because Natalie knows.
So Natalie knows. It's...
how do you pronounce his name?
Last name's Mac, right?
Alicia? Is it Alicia or Elisha?
Is it Eliza or Alicia?
Yeah. But he was...
That's the first.
He was the head or the owner of the Erie Dry Goods, which became the Boston store.
Right. I was remembering Mac because I grew up around heavy machinery, so I was thinking Mac truck. Like that helps me remember it. Sorry, peek inside of my brain for your listeners. But yeah, I actually don't know much about the origin point myself, and so I'm excited about that.
Yes.
But I'm also excited to see where the Community Foundation is headed into the future. What is the future of foundations? What's the vision? How do you celebrate 90, and how are you fortifying any sort of sustainment for the next 90. And that's something that they're working on, something they're planning. I think they're well positioned to do. So we get a chance to learn from Karen Belowith on that one.
Very cool.
Yeah, and we've got a lot of other things, but Fridays at noon, we're always working to gather people, at the JES, and it's a wide range of programming, including looking at there's a really fascinating organization called Destiny of Our Daughters.
Shout out to my friend Shatiria Franklin.
Yeah, and
she's so great.
She is, and she's actually one of the graduates for the JCLA cohort tomorrow. And so I got a chance to learn about this, and actually she brought some of the daughters to Global Summit programs.
Nice.
And so I got to, it was oh man, it was just so cool to see that and to see the work that she's doing. And I, as soon as I had a chance to meet her daughters, during the Global Summit, I thought, okay, we have to make sure more people know about this. So, and a shout out to my JES colleague, Chelsea Oliver, who is pushing for this one as well. She helps direct and guide and facilitate the Civic Leadership Academy. So we were able to do that. But also, from what I hear, in soon, things are going to be, growing in Grow Erie.
Yes.
Like we're actually going to have produce coming out of there. So Tina Mangine,
and it's my show, so I can say it. They're using fish poop as
I love
the as the what do you call it?
The fertilizer.
Fertilizer, yeah.
I love that. So I love the idea
it's
of
sustainable.
Right, because what are we parked right next to that makes us different from the Allentowns, the Reddings, the Scrantons of Pennsylvania? A Great Lake. I mean, we make Pennsylvania a Great Lake state. Our 49, 52 miles of lakefront property, that's us. We have that. We are the only port to the Great Lakes, for the Commonwealth, and that's a really powerful thing to have. So anytime we can leverage the lake in our favor, I think that's a great opportunity. And so Tina Mangine, the head of the Erie County Redevelopment Authority, which has played a powerful role in Grow Erie, is going to be talking about the updates, bringing some other folks in to be able to talk about that as well. But you brought up Lake Erie, so I've got to say it. We've got Lake Erie fish wars, shots fired at local fishermen. David Frew is terrific.
He's amazing. Yeah,
Dr. Frew is one of our scholars in residence, and weekly he churns out the On the Waterfront series, and these great missives and dispatches from his childhood growing up on the lake to history nuggets and just looks into the nooks and crannies of Presque Isle and so much more. But he's going to have a chance to talk about what was an international conflict decades ago, a century ago, with an international conflict between U.S. and Canada of, where exactly do you draw the border when it comes to a Great Lake? And so what happens when you're fishing and they say those are Canadian fish? And you go, but do they know the difference? Or you say those are American fish, and they go, do they know the difference? Did the fish have to show their fish passport when they were crossing over a certain part of it? So really fascinating tale. And Dr. Frew is a great historian and storyteller. So he's going to be presenting that Monday, March 17th at the JES. One of the exciting things, too, if I can keep it just because it's top of mind because it's tomorrow, our Civic Leadership Academy. Another about-to-be graduate is Dr. Allison Eagle. Allie, who works with Gannon University, Dr. Eagle has done some really impressive work around women leadership. And so she has undergone and participated in what is the Ramey Fellow program at the JES. It's an additional optional track for those that want more leadership theory, those that want to work on individualized research. They work with another scholar in residence of ours, Dr. Andrew Roth. He guides and facilitates that. In addition to putting together, some actual writing and reporting, she designed a workshop-style conference. So we're doing a one-day conference from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m., taking a look at overcoming barriers of aspiring female leaders. And the great thing that I'm seeing, Joel, is, the response to that in terms of registration.
Wow.
And also the response in terms of men that are curious about that, so that it's it's not just women who are registering. How do you be an ally? How do you understand that? Especially if you're a leader in your organization, how do you help lift up women within an organization? How is that different? Things to be mindful of. She's got a dynamic panel lined up, including the president of Slippery Rock University, mayor of Meadville, a few folks from Erie who are going to present and talk about that. She also will call from her dissertation to be able to talk about a lot of the research that informs informs this. So, really excited for that. We've not done something like that before, but I like being able to look at what makes sense, how it makes sense. One size fits all is not a motto of the JES. So this is something that really made sense for her research and her work, and to be able to actually act it out rather than just present it on paper, but to gather people interested in that. So I'm really looking forward to that one on March 19th.
I mean, the JES really can navigate a lot of different templates or ways that it can communicate these ideas, and I mean that's what's cool about it.
That's what's always excited me about the Jefferson Educational Society is some think tanks and they do great work, but they might only produce policy papers. They might only produce policy papers that are looking at, let's say, domestic policy, or they might only be looking at foreign affairs, they might only be looking at energy, or they might only be looking at this or that. Going back to our namesake, Jefferson, it's not the person necessarily, but Jeffersonian education, the idea that we if we can inform people, and then they understand a lot about a lot. And I know that's not nearly as eloquent as like Jefferson might have said it, but but I think there's the spirit of just knowledge for knowledge's sake, and then the application of it. So the idea that we can be a convener in across multiple topics, but then also we can convene in multiple ways, from the community conversations that you were focused on, to the evening programming that we do, to these kinds of conferences. To we run 2 courses. We've partnered with the Foreign Policy Association to offer the Great Decisions course, and we have 2 sections of those. And folks look at critical issues that are playing out at an international level. They study those with 2 facilitators, 2 of our scholars in residence, Chris Reel and Diane Chido. And I think the really fun thing about this is that at the end of it, they come up with recommendations and put together actual policy recommendations of what they've learned to, and send that back to the State Department. And they then examine that. And so it really is, when you think like your government isn't listening to you, it is. And we try to make sure that people have an awareness of that. And so the way we try to...
and that your ideas coming out of Little Erie, PA, are making a global impact.
Right, and that's the thing that I always think is so look, I think we can be overwhelmed by the inundation of news at the national level and international level, especially in a technologically driven age that we live in, where your phone is constantly dinging, you're getting push notifications, so many things are jockeying for your eyeballs and your attention for various different reasons, to inform you, to get you to click on ads, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But I think that one of the things, we look at all the challenges and the crises, and that this is no ordinary time. I think it's really the power of local, because a lot of times when things seem so chaotic, so far away from us, it's the local level where you can really take action and have impact, and you have the opportunity to inform up. That actually what's playing out at the local level can help inspire and influence and inform what's happening at the state level, what's happening at the national level. And we've seen that happen with prior JES work. I anticipate it to happen into the future. It's how conversations like talking about what we're doing here in little old Erie, Pennsylvania, which is not so little and perhaps not so old in the grand scheme of things, but JES President Dr. Ferki Faradi and I attended a seminar in Paris to present at the OECD on social capital building and the impact that we have here, because Europeans were very interested in what the JES is doing. And that's where Ferki did his doctoral research in social comparative analysis in education and the impact at a local level. So he's able to present. I got to tag along and then write a little blog for the OECD afterwards, which I'm not trying to diminish that. Like, it was an honor to write that for the OECD, but just to see that, it was sort of like a pinch ourselves kind of moment of like, we're in Paris right now, and like, we're at the Organization for Economic Collaboration and Development, and this is what spun out of the Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe, and now has a worldwide footprint that represents trillions of dollars of GDP. And here we are saying, this is what's happening in Erie, Pennsylvania, and people are going, that's pretty cool. I want to actually see what's happening in Erie, Pennsylvania.
It's remarkable. Some of again, we mentioned this already. They're talking about youth mental health tomorrow night. There are these big ideas. There's these big issues that are kind of on a macro scale, But oftentimes there are these things about Erie's critical issues, whether it is celebrating 90 years of the Erie Community Foundation, or dealing with the police department. Lieutenant Russo, again, my second cousin, Jamie Russo. It's eerie.
Right. It is
1 degree of separation. Right.
And I was I was just so impressed with his update. This is another thing that came out of a Civic Leadership Academy session is when we met with the city, the mayor had brought Lieutenant Russo to be able to talk about some of the work they're doing with the community outreach program and the crisis response unit, crisis response car. And to see, to be able to learn that history of this is something that we had before, and it was scrapped out of the budget in 2005, and then looking at ways to bring it back and the impact that it's having, and the way that it serves the community. And I'm oversimplifying, and come to the program to learn more, and that's on that is on Friday, March 21st. But oversimplifying here, the idea that one, train police officers how to respond to a crisis that is perhaps not not necessarily violent in nature, or that it might be a mental health crisis or a domestic dispute, that be responsive to those kind of responses, but then also to be able to send a social worker with a police officer, because then now you're helping to bridge a gap from any sort of access to resources for somebody who might need that if they're experiencing a mental health crisis, if they're experiencing something else, that it's not this idea that when the police show up you're going to jail, like that's the only outcome or only option, like that there's really more. And I think that of course, we would think of police mottos of the protection they provide, but this also is service, protect and serve. I think that's some of the service that's happening at the local level. So I was so grateful that he accepted our invitation to come, because the cohort participants that were there for that session, they were like, more people need to know about this.
right.
And I said, oh, if only I knew the person booking the programming. So and then got him on the hook for that. So
I want to ask you about your unique partnership with LECOM Health, because in addition to all of these big ideas, there's some very, very practical conversations about your health.
Right. And earlier I mentioned, Joel, we truly believe in the power of partnerships and working with other organizations. And look, I think when some nonprofits think they have to do it all, they try to boil the ocean and you get nowhere. And so one of the things I truly do think we're blessed with in little old Erie, Pennsylvania, which is not so little and not so old, we have so many assets doing great work. And so last year we partnered with LECOM Health to introduce a health series and to be able to bring in their experts and update folks on different topics. February is National Heart Month, so we've got 2 cardiologists coming in.
Nice.
And one is talking about good heart health and latest advancements in cardiac care. We've got Dr. Matthew Becker coming in on Monday, next Monday, February the 10th, and then we've also got cardiovascular problems and treatment available. Carlene Cho, Dr. Cho, is going to come in and present on that. And so there's some real practical advice for better health, because I know for a lot of people that there still is a real stigma or fear or taboo about even going to the doctor and even beginning that conversation. And sometimes you can put off real concerns that, it'd just be more helpful if you heard from a doctor. So sometimes it takes us some creative thinking of how to approach something. And our line of thinking was, if you can take the doctors out of the doctor's office, if you can take the doctors out of the hospital, and you can get them into the JES, where we're a safe place for people to come and learn, here's a good entree into these points. So it's not a free medical consultation. So
right.
It's not the could you take a look at this for me? But it is that's stuff we need, Joel, is advice on good heart health, and to focus on that. And we're able to celebrate National Heart Month and be able to have a partnership with with LECOM Health to be able to pull something off like that. Just like we have a partnership with Erie's Black Wall Street and are focusing on programming around the BIPOC community. And the timing I think is he just won like all the Grammys except for the ones that Beyonce won. But on Tuesday, February 11th, Dr. Rhonda Matthews, one of the co-founders of Erie's Black Wall Street and a professor at Penn West Edinburgh, He's going to be talking about Kendrick Lamar, Drake, and the commodification of rap beef.
Oh
what a
my.
title right there, right?
Yes.
And it's this idea of what happens to capitalism in rap, and we start to see the economy and the influence. But really interesting with Kendrick Lamar because he just won a bunch of Grammys, and he is the Super Bowl halftime performer.
He's coming up on Sunday.
Yeah. So
I got 30 seconds, and I want to ask you about Dr. Roth and his love for holidays. Valentine's Day is coming up real quick.
It is. We have a special Valentine's Day program on Valentine's Day at noon. Saints, sex, sentiment, and chocolate. A short history of Valentine's Day.
Talk about whimsical, right?
Right. And, sometimes you got to get people's attention. And sometimes the title will do it. And Dr. Roth delivered on that one.
Right.
It's a great extension through his American Tapestry project, which is a lecture series and writings that he's done at the JES, but also a program that he hosts with WQLN radio. But be able to focus on American holidays or holidays through the American lens. How do we get there? How do we celebrate this? And also the commodification of that, the amount of investment and how much we spend and how we track that. So packed with history, packed with nuggets. It's going to be fascinating. Come to the JS, make it a Valentine's Day midday date, noon on Friday on Valentine's Day. Maybe there will be some chocolate.
The whole winter term is available at jeserie.org. And congratulations on another term tonight. Yeah.
Joel, thank you so much. From space exploration to Scorpion to all the other things we covered today. I always appreciate being
Here
with you.
I am, rock me like a hurricane. Thank you. Ben Speggen, Vice President of the Jefferson Educational Society. Have a good one, buddy.